I'd like to welcome to the stage to kick off our director's session, Dr. Sanjay Asana. Dr. Sanjay Asana is the director of the Wisconsin ADRC and an associate dean for gerontology. He is also the outgoing chair for the ADRC Executive Committee. Welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Great to see you back here. What an amazing morning session we had. We need to applaud all the people who organized the morning session. It truly was very impressive. Let me get the first slide here. So for this session, I have no conflicts. I've received funding from multiple federal, non-federal sources, but have no conflicts for this presentation. So as many of you know, the overarching scientific theme for this session is biomarkers of non-Alzheimer's coexisting pathologies. And this session, you might have noticed, it permeates through many of the other sessions of this two-day meeting, and it is aligned with the theme of the spring ADRC meeting, where we focused on TDP-43, and this time we'll focus a bit more on alpha-synuclein and some other coexisting pathologies. I think you all are well aware that there's converging evidence that in people with both early and late onset Alzheimer's disease, they have multiple coexisting pathology on autopsy examination. Among this, some of the most frequently reported coexisting pathologies include the vascular lesions, the Lewy body disease, TDP-43, cerebral amyloid angiopathy, alpha-synuclein, hippocampal sclerosis, AGD, and RTEC. Now, the attention to this was really brought on by one of the first few papers published by Dr. Julie Schneider and the Rush group. This paper came out in 2007, and they indicated that mixed brain pathologies were the most common cause of dementia in community living dwelling adults. They also revealed that in people who had an antemortem diagnosis of dementia, over 70% had coexisting pathologies. And also in people who did not have a dementia diagnosis, they also showed about 60 to 70% of either one or multiple coexisting pathologies. Another finding they reported was that the presence of coexisting pathologies made cognitive performance worse. And these findings in many ways have been confirmed by one of the more recently published papers from the UCSF group that came out in Brain a few years ago. And they showed that in people with early onset Alzheimer's disease, about 98% have at least one or more coexisting pathologies. And in people with late onset Alzheimer's disease, all of them on autopsy examination had coexisting pathologies. So these pathologies are extremely common. Another important finding that the UCSF group published is that E4 increases the load of coexisting pathology. There are greater number of coexisting pathologies in people who carry the E4 allele. And they also, like the Rush group, reported that performance and cognitive function was worse in people with larger number of coexisting pathologies. So it is quite clear that these pathologies are not innocent bystanders. In fact, they have a major impact on the clinical phenotype, which includes the age of onset and the severity of cognitive symptoms, the disease progression, the response to treatment, and also the overall mortality rate. And I think we've discussed at the next point in many of our previous ADRC meetings that the most effective treatment for dementia would be therapies targeting the Alzheimer's pathology and those that are targeting the coexisting pathologies. Unless we target treatment for both AD and non-AD pathologies, we may not get the desirable therapeutic efficacy that we are looking for. In a recent editorial published in Brain in response to the UCSF paper, the authors indicated that, in fact, there is a significant interaction that takes place within the coexisting pathologies and the interaction that these pathologies have with the AD pathology. As an example, TDP-43. people with AD dementia who have TDP-43, their cognitive symptoms are worse and their disease progression is faster. Likewise, the amyloid that gets deposited in the cerebral amyloid angiopathy, that amyloid is the same that you see in plaques. So there's clearly an interaction between the existing pathologies and also those pathologies and AD pathology. So it's a complex interplay that takes place over years between the coexisting pathologies in Alzheimer's disease. In a more recent paper published by Dr. Woodward, Davis Woodward from UC Irvine, and Pete Nelson was also an author from Kentucky, and they analyzed the neuropathology data set in NAC. So it's a large sample size, and what they reported that 65% of decedents had Alzheimer's. Their focus was on TDP-43 and Lewy body, but they reported that 65% had these multiple coexisting pathologies. Only about 35% in this paper, in this series, had Alzheimer's pathology alone. This slide is a reminder that Clarity, just recently funded in Dr. Sterling Johnson's leadership, the sole focus of Clarity is really to examine the coexisting pathologies, understand the pathophysiology, and hopefully develop some biomarkers and also eventually effective treatments for these coexisting pathologies. This slide here, published by the Arizona group, Dr. Beach, and his group, he actually demonstrated that the prevalence of coexisting pathologies varies with age. In the younger age group, we're talking about people who are younger than 65, Lewy body disease is the most prevalent coexisting pathology. And the prevalence of Lewy body declines with aging. In contrast, all the other coexisting pathologies increase with age. And those include, of course, the microinfarcts, the TDP-43, hippocampal sclerosis, gross infarcts, non-AD tauopathies such as corticobasal degeneration, progressive supranuclear palsy. All those co-pathologies increase with age except Lewy body disease. And I think this is another interesting, important finding that's been confirmed in other papers as well. So with that very brief intro to the scientific theme of this session, I think the bottom line is that we all agree that the AD pathologies and the coexisting pathologies have significant interplay. As a field, this is an opportune time for you, for all of us, to understand the pathophysiology of coexisting pathologies, develop some biomarkers, perhaps some therapeutic interventions, because together, once we target the AD and non-AD pathologies, together, that's when we see the best therapeutic effects and perhaps slow the prevalence and incidence of dementia disorders. So in the presentation today, we'll have three scientific presentations, and then there'll be a panel discussion, which will be chaired by Dr. Gail Rabinovich, and we'll have all the three presenters along with Dr. Ganesh Babulal, who will join us virtually. He's from WashU ADRC, Dr. Astrid Suki Dicey, who is from University of Washington, and Dr. Edward Lee from UPenn. So with that brief intro, I would like to invite Dr. Richard Hodes to share with us the latest information about NIA. Dr. Hodes, you all know, has been director for over 30 years, and under his leadership, the field of dementia research has seen tremendous growth. Dr. Hodes.
Thank you. First, it's great to be here with all of you in person, speaking for myself and Amy Kelly and other staff of NIA. This morning, I'm going to be brief, but even briefer than usual, with a rundown of some specific updates, because I want to take most of the precious moments that I've got with you to talk about a particular area that I want to share in which you're all very much involved. So first, I want to pay homage and memoriam to two outstanding figures we've lost, outstanding to the field of Alzheimer's research, certainly to the centers program. Carl Kottman, who led two centers during his prestigious career and made enormous contributions to the interplay between behavior, exercise, BDNF, biological factors, the beginnings of what's developed in a great field, a true giant in the area, and we'll do and we'll miss him greatly. The other, Francisco Lopera, who was not a center director, but as you know, had an enormous impact in his leadership in Medellin in Colombia, the discovery and analysis of a population bearing an autosomal dominant mutation causing Alzheimer's disease at an early age. Incredible accomplishments in a large cohort population, which was inspiring in his own person and in the value that this community, largely rural and often beset with hardships population did as participants. So two great figures that we've lost, and would join all of you, I'm sure, in mourning and respecting their passing. Also, on the celebratory side, so anniversaries. I'm not going to dwell on the fact that it's NIA's 50th anniversary, but I will pause for a moment just to congratulate the 40th anniversary of the ADRCs, an enormous program that's changed so much from the beginning. But yes, a round of applause for yourselves. And then legislative updates. And as usual in this time of year when we meet, there's not as much to say as we would like. There is good news in the fact that we're not facing a shutdown, which sometimes happens this time of year, with a continuing resolution that takes us through December 20th and freezes us at the last year's level of budget. But we don't know what our final appropriation will be. Once again, we will be beginning in a very conservative way, therefore, with initial pay lines to make awards while we await that December 20th or whenever we have a final appropriation, all too common, in fact. In terms of legislation, also there was an important milestone in the renewal of the Alzheimer's Accountability and Investment Act. This will mean that we will again be providing our bypass budgets annually. The NAPA, the National Advisory Council, will remain in activity, and we hope all this will continue to keep in high profile the mission of the centers and all of our programs in the public and legislative domains. Now, here's where I'd like to spend greater time than usually have opportunity to in any one topic, and I hope it'll be one with active discussion. So if this topic takes up all the time, we've got a lot in your conversation, that'll be just fine. And the reason I want to talk about NIA processes is multiple. In all the years that we've been working together, with all the recent years we've had of incredible support from Congress and the public, it's been based on transparency, on trust, on the fact that I think we all collectively work together to generate a process by which broadly soliciting ideas from researchers, from advocates, from people living with dementias, from a variety of audiences, has contributed to a coherent and transparent process that leads us to ideas. Some of them are then preceded, and you'll see, by investigator-initiated research, others through a series of more targeted initiatives. But for the continued trust and maintenance, I want to share with you and have you be partners in communicating the way we do this work. It's particularly important and salient now at a time when, as many of you will know, NIA and leadership has undergone a change due to some unfortunate circumstances. We'll have Amy Kelly in her second hat talking to us as the acting division director for the Division of Neuroscience. But more than ever, we need to work to maintain trust. I think trust well earned in terms of the process. Well, with no pointer and a very complicated slide, let me just reassure you on this slide that it will be followed by some breakouts of pieces that are more manageable. But what this is intended to show in terms of a flow is in the upper left in green. We'll get into this in more detail. The many inputs that we have to our planning process. Down below, that leads to either the investigator-initiated research or to the process we have internally. Again, I'll go through it in more process in detail, by which we identify promising areas, gaps, and opportunities that come from the input from the scientific research and advocate communities. And then the way this is reviewed through our National Advisory Council, many of you are familiar with that, and then how all this leads to applications, awards based on peer review scores, and areas of particularly high emphasis, all transparent. So if we move to external input, and I think this is critical to all of us, you are very much an important part of this net. We have multiple NIA-sponsored or hosted meetings, workshops. The summits are prominent among them. Each year, a summit in succession, Alzheimer's Research Summit, an ADRC Related Dementia Summit, and one on care and caregiving. And these are, the most recent of these, as you all well know, was just last month in September. And they're followed then by a session in which we collect the ideas about gaps and opportunities and translate those into priorities. Those are put into context of the milestones that we have that track success and criteria for success in these many milestones, all of which also lead into our annual bypass budget. Reports and recommendations of the national academies, one that'll be coming at the end of this year, beginning of next, looking at research directions and analyzing and suggesting future directions, all part of the important areas. NACA, the National Advisory Council, is responsible for not only what many of you know in terms of your individual applications, the sort of so-called second-level review of individual applications, but they also provide review of all of the proposed concepts. As we have ideas that are candidates for targeting and set aside of funds, those are all reviewed by our National Advisory Council. And in fact, the council sessions are when they become public and public domain. Again, the public aspect and transparency being important. And then congressional input. There are times in which we have particular directives or interests expressed by Congress, and of course they're an important part of what determines the directions we take. Internal process. Not necessarily are all of you so aware of these. Many of you, will say, have served on our advisory council, and so perhaps more so, but each year, as a result of all the input that's come from meetings, workshops, all that you provide to us, we have a process by which all of the professional staff, all the program officers of the Institute across all its divisions collectively generate thoughts and priorities about potential areas for targeted research. These are presented each year at a session, a 3-day retreat in which staff get together to openly discuss and comment upon the relative merits of these. And then the output of that is a suggestion for which of them are of the highest priority for targeting for concepts to be approved, reviewed and approved by council and become the targeted RFAs, FOAs, the NOFOs that come out forward. Again, maximal input, no decision making by individual program officers or even division directors at this level, rather a collective that takes advantage of all that you provide to us and then how we work with that to identify the important priorities. At the far end, of course, is the review and selection for funding. Peer review, another enormous guarantee for all of us of the quality and impartiality of the work that we are ultimately funding. We regard scores as important, but also have provisions for taking to our advisory council exceptional applications which have scores that are respectable, but perhaps not within the pay line, and we do have an opportunity to declare them to be of sufficient relevance in particular circumstance, so-called high program relevance, to be funded, again, all with input and a process that is meant to be impartial, maximally instructive, and based on the information you all provide to us. And here's where I want to pause. There are some other updates I can have, but it's an area where, more so than my experience over the years in talking with you and inviting questions and conversations, I hope this time to be more successful in asking, even encouraging, dare I say, insisting on communication input from you. You are a part of this process that we all depend upon in planning our research, in engendering and continuing the trust that the publics, including the policymakers, have in us. And I'd like you to be active parts of questioning the process or express your views on how you think we're working together, areas where we might work better together, and we'll turn to planted questions if there are no spontaneous ones. Please, if any of you would like to step up. I hope I made clear the reason for the importance of this. You know, we are always accountable to the public. The enormous, unprecedented increase we've had in resources that made the centers and all of our programs possible has been because of that trust, and we have to be constantly vigilant to maintaining it. Yeah. Eric.
Richard, Eric Ryman from the Arizona ADRC. You know, very unfortunate and heartbreaking situation. And I just wanted to comment as a former NACA member, just what a wonderful job NIA staff has been as stewards of the national plan to address Alzheimer's disease and aging research in such a thoughtful way, balancing a number of important objectives, including helping to support our youngest investigators, those from diverse backgrounds, extending our findings to those from diverse backgrounds, but also doing so in ways that have continue to push the envelope in terms of innovation and impact. The progress that's been made in the last few years under the stewardship of you and your team has been really remarkable, and I just thought it was an important time to thank you for that.
Thank you.
Charlie over here.
Yeah. Hey, Charlie.
How are you? Thank you so much, and I want to second what Eric said about all the things that have happened, and to just be grateful for the NAPA Act, which has really brought Alzheimer's disease research into a position among the ICs where it belongs. And I hope that with the passing of the new act, we will continue to do that, because there are so many novel and innovative new ideas coming out of it that just blossomed with the first set of funding. And I hope that you will continue to lead us in that direction. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd also like to say that all of you were a part of the communications apparatus for informing the public, whether it's with your local communities, the participants in studies, your scientific colleagues, also for policymakers in your own states or districts. And on behalf of all of us, invite you to find any opportunities we have to speak, ideally with you on a platform, to express the importance of the partnership of NIA, NIH, and you, the investigators, with policymakers to try to engender support, make it personal, make it specific, and enrich that commitment.
Yeah, Richard, Hank Paulson, I actually got to make the point you just kind of made, which is, well, we know the transparency of NIA and how things work. We understand the process you talked about. It's the public who increasingly is concerned about whether we are transparent or whether we are honest, that we do a better job of getting the information out to them. And that is us, right? That's the investigators, and we don't do that well enough. It's also NIA and NIH, making sure that they have a way of getting that word out compellingly to the public. And I don't know how we do that, but we need to do that.
Thank you. And thanks for your help in that.
You can hear me. I want to echo all the sentiments expressed, but also want to applaud and thank the participants who are actually part of our studies. And they and their families go through so much of work, and they've been part of our centers for years to come, and their contributions are truly enormous, and we would be nowhere without the participants and their participation in the research studies.
Yeah. A critical comment, and very well said. For those of you who participated in person or remotely at last month's summit, perhaps the most notable session, certainly at an emotional level, was one which was entirely dedicated to individuals advocating for or living with or as partners to those living with dementia. It was an incredible session, and I think we need to continually do more of that to remind all of us in the public about the roles played and the partnership we have, most importantly of all, with those who participate in research.
Yeah, Greg Jica, University of Kentucky. Really, again, echoing everybody's sentiments, but I think we're at a pivotal point in what we're doing and what the American public and what Congress wants to see. As a field, we're in an era where the first disease-modifying therapies have been brought forward. We really need to start moving some of our initiatives towards implementation science to get this out to the community, to start working on combination therapies. The Alzheimer's Association is doing a bang-up job trying to pull ALZNet together to study the real-world practice of these therapies. And so I really do think, as a whole, as a group, yes, there's still a lot of need for the things that we've been doing for the last 40 years, but we're in a transition period, and really, NIA is going to lead that, hopefully, and bring us all together in this new era.
Thank you. So echo and support that. Partnership's important. The Alzheimer's Association with other federal agencies, with FDA, with CMS, with whom NIH interacts and plays its own and a very important and central role.
Hi, Richard, Ron Peterson.
Hey, Ron.
With the reauthorization of NAPA for another 10 years, while you don't have the call, you have a clear input on that with the Alzheimer's Association at your side. Do you see directions for the next 10 years of Alzheimer's disease research that are different from the goals that were set for the first 15, to find preventions, treatments, cures for Alzheimer's disease? Is there a different motivation for going forward with regard to the next 10 years?
Well, I think those goals have not changed, as you well know, except with the addition of one dealing with risk management and prevention, which is an important adjunct. So if there is a change over these next years, I think the language of the current goals covers it very well. What's enormously different is the substance of the prospects for accomplishing those. So 10 years ago, at the beginning of the first plan, when we said prevention or cure by 2025, it was truly aspirational. Now we certainly still aspire, but with far more progress and evidence along that path. So I think, Ron, what we're going to have is more and more approaches to accomplishing those same goals. I think the fundamentals still hold true, and the fundamentals of openness to new ideas, to making translation important, but that continued balance of basic discovery research through preclinical, clinical translation and support of the ultimate prevention trials, all still, while unfortunately for the foreseeable future, maintaining the important sister or adjunctive goal of providing care and services for those people who are living with and dealing with Alzheimer's-related dementias. But hopefully that's going to become, in the future, less of a challenge because we will prevent people from progressing to that goal. But it remains, I think, at the heart. The full spectrum in the first plan will be those in the second. And I only hope that whoever's standing up here 10 years from now will look back and talk beyond the very first successful trials we've had, but look at those as the historical first, leverage then for far greater, far more effective and comprehensive studies. We've learned lessons perhaps that weren't so explicit in the beginning about heterogeneity and with it diversity and inclusion. So if there's a theme that was probably underrepresented originally, not because it wasn't in our hearts, but maybe not as yet in our minds or translation, it is probably that, as we've learned for reasons of both ethical imperatives and for what we learned about the science, to pay more and increasing attention in all of our pursuits at individual differences and group differences, and addressing those for all of our national and global population. If we've got a bit more time, just I don't want to go beyond the limits, but thank you first of all for this discussion. It was fantastic. I hope it'll be more of a precedent to have you engaged, and we'll try to direct topics for your engagement. But one of the signs of progress and changes that have happened over the years, and to Ron's point, a point for the future, is how we've translated the diversity of basic research discoveries and pathways into clinical trials. And this illustrates here for pharmacologic and non-pharmacologic trials the diversity of targets. So on the left side, pharmacologic, on the top, the 54 trials that are phase 1 and phase 2. You can see of those 54, only 6 are targeting amyloid. Not so many years ago, it was nearly all. And it's not that amyloid doesn't remain an important target, but you can see the many others that have joined the ranks, and the future individual combinations thereof, attacking what we know to be, and what Sanjay described to us as the complexity of disease. Even the 13 phase 2, 3, 4 clinical trials, though amyloid is the most predominant single, there's still only 4 out of the 13. And to the right, the non-pharmacologic trials too, we're seeing more and more indications of success in individual and combination therapies. All the kinds of successes that in many ways are easiest to explain to the public as rationales tied to the basic science that feeds into these. Talked about active clinical trials around dementia care and caregiving. Here too, you can see the progress that's been made in multiple kinds of approaches, and the identification of arguably the first 2 most promising, which are relevant and ready for dissemination and further evaluation. Diagnostics and biomarkers, one of the more visible and important areas of progress that's going to feed into all of our trials to understand, treat, and prevent. and then treatment of related neuropsychiatric symptoms. The professional judgment budget I just referred to you all. You know, each year we put this budget forward. You've seen the dollar figures in the most recent, but there's a document as well that describes the narrative. And this is our attempt to provide an understandable narrative to the many publics, those affected, caregivers, the general population, congressional audiences, about just what the backgrounds are behind our cost estimates, how the many milestone-driven areas are translated into what we anticipate as future research. This is the future and recommend it all to you for reading. Similarly, a progress report each year looking at the recent past to summarize what the accomplishments have been, and they are impressive over past years. Significant advances in all of the areas of research that we've enumerated here this morning. And then just to note that NIA overall is in the process of its next 5-year strategic directions process, and we invite all of you to provide your input in response to the RFI currently receiving suggestions. So there's the overall NIA broad strategic plan, which encompasses many of the areas around Alzheimer's-related dementias that are the target of the centers in this program. And then above all, a beseeching of all of you to stay in touch with us with your input and to hear and understand what we're doing. And with that, I have the great pleasure of passing on the podium to Amy Kelly. I'll introduce that by just sharing my deepest gratitude for how fortunate we are to have recruited Amy, what she's brought to the Institute, to me, to all of us in these past years. You met her last May when she spoke as the deputy director at this podium in the opening, and now with her second hat, she's still the NIA deputy director, but somehow managing to juggle in outstanding fashion that job with that of acting director of the Division of Neuroscience. Amy.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. So as Richard mentioned, I've had the chance to be with you a couple of times wearing my deputy director hat, and today serving in the role of the acting division director for the Division of Neuroscience. I wanted to take the opportunity today not only to give you the usual updates and announcements and activities from the division, but also just to reintroduce myself, tell you a little bit more about my background and actually why this particular role is a big honor, one that feels fitting for me. So I think, like many of you in this audience, I was inspired to a career in geriatrics, to aging research, and to a focus on dementia by formative experiences with my family. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, where my dad's family had lived for generations, and on the left-hand side, you can see my grandfather and his sister. They both completed college degrees in the 1930s. They lived well into their 90s, had active, exciting lives as older adults. My great aunt did develop dementia in her final years, but you know, a long couple of lives on that side of my family. My mom's family came from a small mill town in West Virginia. My grandma Frances is there in the pink on the right with her sister, my great aunt Polly. Their town, the local school only went through 10th grade. Their lives in their later years were very different. They were marked by more chronic illnesses. My great aunt also had dementia. They died in their 70s. There was a lot of joy among this generation of my family. You can see the mischievous smiles of both of my great aunts. But so I went on to do my training in internal medicine and geriatrics at Cornell, did my research training out at UCLA, and then came back to New York City to work at Mount Sinai for many years. I am the only physician in my family, including all of my in-laws and siblings-in-laws family, so I've gotten a lot of curbside consults over the years. And what I've realized is that health and health care are tremendously different around the country, and it really depends on social circumstances, where you live, what the resources in your area are like. And that really was a driving factor in the early days of my research and some of the work I did under my Beeson Scholars Award. But also my clinical practice has informed my research. So I'm a geriatrician. I'm also a palliative care provider. And through my clinical work, I've cared for those people and their families from the first conversation about their memory concerns all the way up through those last stages of dementia and the end of life. And so my work, my own research prior to coming to NIA was really focused on the experience of that care, the experience of the illness, the impact on families, and the wide variation experienced by people based on social circumstances, regional resources, and other medical conditions. And so it was just a thrill to come to NIA a couple of years ago as deputy director to really expand my lens on aging research, join an incredible team in the service of the NIA mission to really improve the lives of all older adults. And now it's truly my honor to step in as acting division director for neuroscience and frankly kind of get into the action a little bit more at the division level with funding opportunities and exciting developments in the science working with all of you. So this is the division organizational chart. It's not meant to be readable at this level, but we will circulate slides so you can look for your favorite program officer's name on the list when you get these afterwards. But in addition to my leadership of the division, I'm joined with a partner, Jenny Larkin, who many of you know as our deputy director. And recently, we have onboarded a new chief of staff who is helping to manage the large scale of our division. Stephanie Corchese, I think she might be here in the audience. I know she's with us, so if you have a chance to meet Stephanie during the meeting, that would be a great opportunity. As many of you are probably aware, the division has 5 branches. We have over 80 program staff. These are each one just extraordinary people, really experts in their area, and they are all looking to be of service to each and every one of you as you think about your research, your ideas, your questions around policy, whatever it is you might need. So please do reach out to us and work with us at whatever stage your research is in. So a couple of policy and process updates I wanted to share by way of announcements. So I wanted to convey the details of our administrative supplements program. This is not a new announcement. This is not a change in policy, but it is something we've noticed as an emphasis and an area of greater oversight at the NIH level. So this specifies that administrative supplements can be requested when additional funds are needed to support research that is within the scope of the project as awarded. So it cannot be requested when there is a new research component or an expansion of the scope of the research. So if there is a desire to expand the scope of the research, that really should come in to us as a competitive revision. But sometimes the line can be a little fuzzy, or you're not sure, and it might feel like this is a little bit different than what you experienced in years past. So please do reach out to our program staff to talk this through. It's something that we've been thinking about internally more and working with NIH overall in terms of this policy. So please reach out for guidance. The other is our ARA policy. Again, this is not new, but it is something we just announced last year. We are really prioritizing, as we've talked about in this meeting so far and in past ADRC meetings, the appropriateness of inclusion, really trying to get research funded that is representative of populations who are affected by a disease or a condition. And so we, for these higher cost awards, we really want to scrutinize the target for inclusion prior to even submitting the award. So there's a process, a policy for review of ARAs. Again, reach out to program staff well in advance, even at the time of your first idea for plan, and be sure that you're following these policies so that it doesn't slow down your, your submission process. Some funding opportunities. So really just to share with you a range of opportunities that cross the entire scientific pipeline. A couple of these have expired, but they're illustrative of the scope of the funding opportunities. We have a couple of due dates coming right up upon us this week and in the coming couple of weeks. But again, the idea here is that we are looking for science from the earliest stages of the biologic all the way up through the translational, and looking to all of you for innovations and advancements in those areas. I also really wanted to focus your attention on an expanding area of funding targeting low and middle income countries. Many of you may be aware that globally the incidence of dementia is not only increasing, but is particularly rising quickly in low and middle income countries, LMICs as we abbreviate it. So we have a range of RFAs you can see listed here looking to advance not only science focused on those populations, but the scientists who are working in those areas as well. So Damali Martin is the program director in this space. I would encourage you to talk with her, but also to look up these RFAs and see if they might be of interest to you or your colleagues. And as Richard discussed, the process of new scientific ideas that proceed to be concepts that then go to our National Advisory Council. When those are approved, we like to get the ideas out on the street as quickly as possible, and these would be things that in the coming months and years you should be looking for to be announced as funding opportunities. So again, I'm not going to read these to you. You'll be able to access the slides afterwards, but I wanted just to point out again the breadth of concepts here. So we have one looking at biomarkers related to dementia for people on the autism spectrum. I mentioned the LMIC work. We also have digital technologies, opportunities that are focused on pre-doctoral students, really again thinking about that entire career span that we want to bring people into the field of dementia research. So please take a look at the website for all of the details on these concepts, and keep an eye on our announcements for more details about funding opportunities. A couple of quick updates on events. So the Research Summit, this was just also mentioned in Richard's talk. This was a fantastic event, and it is recorded. So if you weren't able to join us, please do take a look at some of the recordings. In particular, that the study participant panel was really a powerful part of the summit this year. As we talked about, these summits, and this one being our most recent, are opportunities to hear from everyone in the field about the current gaps, the current opportunities for future research. We will be convening an executive session in the coming month to sift through all of that input and really solidify where we see the research needs to move forward. And then you all can be looking for the announcement of additional milestones early in 2025 that are stemming from these conversations and other workshops. Additionally, next year's summit will be focused on ADRD. This is led by our partners at NINDS, but certainly with a lot of input and partnership with our staff as well. Please keep an eye out for further details, but you can go ahead and mark your calendars. It'll be in March of 2025, and hopefully you all will be able to participate in that summit, again, as an opportunity to contribute to ideas that need to be moved forward to additional opportunities in the field. Happening as we speak is a workshop on adaptive technologies, but we have one coming up next week around protein polymorphism. You can look for those. They're both available virtually. The one is a hybrid meeting, but you can join it online. We will be focusing on dementia and Lewy bodies in a summit or a workshop that is later in November. Again, this is a partnership between NIA and NINDS. So keep an eye out for that or consider joining. And also common data elements. We will be focusing on that topic with a workshop in December. For all of these, we do make the outputs from the meeting, the recordings, the reports available afterwards for those who are not able to make it synchronously. And again, our how to stay connected slide. So please do sign up for our listservs, follow our blog, whether it's LinkedIn or X, whatever your social media of choice is. There's lots of ways to be in touch with us, and also share your news with our team as well. We love to hear how things are going and share your advancements with the field more broadly. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Cerise Elliott.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here with everyone. And I am going to start, especially when Nina makes me do the presentation, I'm always going to start with, hey, why are we here? Okay? And so I think it's really important to know why we're here. We're here to collaborate, to be in a big room together, to network, and to do in-person knowledge exchanges. So I hope that for the rest of the session and tomorrow that you can expand outside of your own kind of network and kind of meet people from other centers and kind of get to know them. And I want to thank everyone for putting on this meeting twice a year. See, I did that for you, Greg. To have all the steering committees come together, presenters, the team at NAC, thank you very much, the clinical task force, which you'll hear from and I'll talk about again, all the research participants and the way that we could converse and talk to everything. Thank you for responding to surveys. You think that we do it for fun, but we really do it because we need the information, and it's very important tool that NAC has provided to give us some quickness at getting response. And thanks for all the NIA staff that's here in person and everyone who's online, and all of our non-government organizations that are here to join us, again, to have this knowledge exchange about what we do at the centers. I still like this slide. It's where we come together twice a year. This year, the executive committee, Sanjay, outlined what we're doing later in the afternoon. This morning, I hope you were here for the Neuropath Core steering committees and the OR Core steering committees. The later on tomorrow, the data will have a second meeting because they're so excited to get together in person. They already had their first meeting yesterday. And then tomorrow, we're going to have poster sessions that's managed by the research education component steering committee. And so again, we have these committees to, again, facilitate knowledge exchanges, but they also set goals every year, and they plan these sessions. And, excuse me, is there always like an interest to have more active roles into the program? You always consider to be part of the steering committee and look for the nomination email from NAC, and Hannah manages all that. And the list of the current steering committees are available in the NAC directory, and slowly, like each of the steering committees are kind of more open to the idea of incorporating early career staged investigators into their processes. And so the more work that you're willing to do, I think they're more open to accepting you. Again, I just wanted to highlight again this morning, thank you to the OR Core, the Neuropathology Core, for having a collaboration session, talking to one another and bringing us Catherine Brandt and Tish Hevel and Nancy Cherico to come and talk about their specific experience with brain donations. I think that during the hallway talks, I heard lots of people have positive things to say about that. So if you missed it this morning, please try to watch again. I think that this discussion of retention that happened in the OR Core first thing in the morning and brain donation is important, but also when we come together in person, it's always important to have to remind us that we're doing things 35 different ways, but then there's also our expectation that we would like you to do it in a national kind of way, that that you are stronger together as opposed to whittling away in your local places. So I think that there is a consistent need to come together and have consistent iteration and iterating constantly. Then, during lunch today, we had a new investigator award program, and if you didn't choose to come and join us in that lunch session, the recording I think will be available during the meeting, but it was also online and happening at the same time hybridly. It's a collaboration with the Alzheimer's Association, and Heather Snyder was at the lunch meeting and facilitated the meeting. We've given out 10 awards through this collaboration, and there's going to be a webinar about the program October 24th at 9:30 Pacific Standard Time. So scan that QR code, tell everyone in your center that there's this opportunity to get $135,000 direct costs. In addition, if you apply and you check a box in your application process, you can get a mentor. And this mentorship program is managed and couldn't be done without the REC steering committee. And if you're interested in being a mentor, you can scan that QR code, which is a different QR code, and then sign up to be a mentor. But the mentors are established researchers who have received R01 fundings, and if you are early stage career investigator and new investigator and you submit your letter of intent, there's a box in that application process for you to get connected with the mentor. And it's important that you click that box because you got to get counted in the system. Tomorrow is a poster session. Thursday, I hear it's the favorite part of everybody's session is come and see these posters. So they're going to be here at 9:30 in the morning. Everyone scan this QR code because you become the voters, and you're going to vote the top 3 presenters. And also the people online who are virtual, you also have the opportunity to vote. Is that true? No. I don't know. Okay. But there are going to be 2 awards. You get $1,000 each. And if you come to the meeting tomorrow after lunch, you'll find out who the winners are. So you got to, give you that cliffhanger to come back after lunch. Okay, my favorite topic ever, the UDS-4. We have a launch date, and we're very excited about it. We're going to do a 6-month window. There's lots of tasks to do. We have NAC working on resource development, training and support, and also we're still doing our translations. We're going to hear more about it about 3 more times. The beginning, January 2025, we're going to start, and then we're going to close the 6-month window at the end of June 2025 that we want all 35 sites to have transitioned to using the UDS-4. Come tomorrow at 2:15 and learn how to do it. go email all your staff and your clinical research assistants to log in online tomorrow and learn what the timeline and the updates are. And like I said, the implementation window is going to be January 25 to June 25. So then when we come back in San Francisco in May, we're going to be like, oh, like everyone's like, I'm already done. I don't even need that extra 60 days. So that's how that's going to go. Also, the last meeting for tomorrow is clarity updates in the grand ballroom, which is this room. So please come and learn how you are working with clarity and the PIs there, and answer all your questions and concerns that you have, and learn about all of the next steps that you have to do. Please also attribute credit to the ADRCs when you are doing media or presentations or posters or publications. Don't have unobligated balances. It's probably the 6th time I said that. And we're working to offset the current award or subsequent award by the amount that represented on some of all of that or all of that excess. So we monitor that when you guys turn in your progress reports. It's important to measure progress because we need evidence of success. We need our metrics. I think that in the morning session, we had like our inclusive theme, that it's important to be inclusive in our participants and who we include in our activities, but those inclusive themes also require intentional action and intentional cooperations. I think there's a lot of challenges that we have, and I think it requires us as a community of professionals to have collective problem solving. I feel that there are a lot of similar problems with different solutions that could be shared across the network. And we've been talking to a few centers, having one-on-one meetings and discussions with them, because I think as a whole, we all kind of gotta know what what the awareness of operations are. And again, that requires, more collaboration. I think we have to, again, have consistent iterations and iterating constantly, because, that project period is 5 years, and there's a short amount of time that we're expecting you to understand what we want as a center, and for you to learn and execute that in your local site. And it can't easily be done from scratch. And also, it's a constant iteration. So that's my new theme today, is constant iterations. And so we have a list of benefits for becoming an ADRC, some suggestions that this group of interviewees had for us, and some challenges that, I think aren't common, aren't unique, and I think that we could do a better job at solving our problems collectively. And then, as Amy mentioned, there's a DLB workshop next month in November, and I thank you for your time. And I feel like there's no time for questions, so we could do a couple questions. Okay. Do we want Amy and Richard to come up on stage?
Sure, that would be lovely.
And then there are microphones on the chairs.
Yeah, we'll take 2 to 3 questions. Nah.
Hannah said we have time for 2 to 3 questions, and so if you had any questions about what we have stated today, let us know.
Hi, Randall Eck from the University of Washington. Thank you for being here today. I just wanted to ask about how the NIA approach to student training and also retention may evolve in the next 5 to 10 years.
Well, each of us can give an answer to that. Clearly, as was alluded to, it is one of our highest priorities. So when we look at overall, our efforts to support training, career development, you may have seen, some of you, the multicolored chart we use to look at each stage of career development and training, what alternative mechanisms we have and to which populations are available and with what constraints. And we're always looking to shore up or fill gaps in that. I think diversity has been an important superimposition on all of that, but along that line, turning it back to you, all of you, would welcome suggestions if there are questions about particular mechanisms or suggestions for areas that are lacunae, that are gaps where support is particularly problematic. We'd love to hear about it and do what we can to fill those. Do you have any in mind?
I am a recipient of the F99K00 mechanism, and I think that's a great approach to retaining graduate students into postdocs. And I know the NCI is moving towards that and away from the F31, and I was wondering if the NIA may take a similar approach in the future with that bridge funding being the primary F mechanism.
Yeah, certainly also enthusiastic about that.
And also, like at NIA, we do offer the F99K00, and I think also in the last 3 years, our training and outreach team has grown, and they're outstanding, and I think that is a testament to the commitment that we have at NIA to support our staff members to go and outreach, and they're out at every meeting, and they'll be at GSA if you're going to go next month.
And I would just add a final point. Take a look at our training site. We have a couple of specific NOFOs at the postdoctoral level that actually have a higher stipend rate than some of the standard NIH stipends. So.
Jose Cavazos from South Texas ADRC, UT Health San Antonio. So I'm actually the REC steering committee chair, but in another time was the president of the Association of MD-PhD programs. So F30 is one of the key components for career development. One aspect that has always bothered us, and we have been writing is to different groups as an association, is the idea of developing a physician-scientist track for residency, which ties very nicely with the K99R00. Now, specifically, the Allergy and Infectious Disease Institute came up with a specific NOFO for physician scientists for K99R00. And why that is important, if you want to shorten your time to R01, we need to get people to apply to fellowship, to grants that have teeth to be able to negotiate to other institutions, jobs to another institutions that you can carry with the R00 component so that you can get going rather than what we do right now, which is to do, first you get into the institution, you get into the KL2, you then get a K08, K23. I mean, your time to R01 just keeps by health system or grant system or research system being prolonged to an extent because you have to achieve the next step so that you are more successful for the future. If we can reconstruct the system and we can empower grants that give promising fellows in the ADRC space, we might be able to short the time to R01. And certainly those individuals may still need, the problem with some of these training grants is that if you get one of these by lucky chance, you lose your eligibility. There might be some ability for those individuals who are within 5 or 7 years from finishing training to be able to still apply with early investigator status.
Thank you for that.
Despite the R01.
I don't know if either of us knows the specifics of the NIAID program, but we'll certainly look into it to see if it does something that we are not currently offering. Thank you for the suggestion.
Happy to email you about it.
Suda, you're going to be the last question.
I'll keep it short. Thank you very much. One of the things that was highlighted this morning, for instance, was the lack of neuropathology from underserved areas and communities. And part of this is also much greater work required to enroll, to be available at the time that the person dies. And it all comes out of the same ADRC pool, and I wonder if some kind of incentive as partial repayment or even a $1,000 bonus if the brain is from this 4%, 1% kind of groups could be an incentive, like when when there are periods when you say the Medicare will pay for Hispanic pet, and that really increased the recruitment. So just something like that could be beneficial, because we do find, and there's also this concern about if something is very expensive and a financial decision is made not to accept the donation from somebody in a distant rural community or where there are more challenges, then that clearly erodes trust.
Thank you for that feedback. Thank you for listening to the NIA updates, and thank you to Richard and Amy for staying for Q&A. And I think we're going to hand off directly to Sarah. Okay. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Can everyone hear me? There we go. Hello, and welcome to the 2024 Fall ADRC meeting. I'm thrilled that so many of you were able to join us here in Boston and virtually, and I'm excited to share what is new at NAC. So our overarching goal at NAC is to leverage the unique strengths of the ADRC program and NAC to advance ADRD discovery and translation. Over the past few years, NAC has been increasingly delivering on this mission by providing advanced and expanded informatics and operational infrastructure, implementing new frameworks to facilitate impactful communication and collaboration, and doing more to support the next generation of researchers. I want to highlight some of the important progress that has happened since I last presented to you at our meeting in May. I'll start with a report on the increase in our data, in data volume and utilization. The NAC UDS study, launched in 2005, continues to grow and remains the largest and most comprehensive standardized longitudinal clinical ADRD dataset in the world. It consists of more than 52,000 clinical core participants overall, including more than 19,000 active participants. Together, ADRCs have performed nearly 200,000 clinical assessments on these participants, with NAC having up to 20 years of data on some. The ADRC cohort includes individuals with normal cognition, mild cognitive impairment, and dementia symptoms caused by a wide range of pure and underlying etiologies, mixed etiologies. Nearly 60% of ADRC participants are brain donors, and NAC currently houses more than 8,000 standard neuropathology data sets. NAC and the ADRC program have enabled major breakthroughs in the field, and NAC data has been cited in over 1,300 publications to date, a 26% increase since 2021. I'm also proud to share that NAC has enabled a 228% increase in the average number of data requests per month over the past 3 years. This includes over 995 data requests so far in 2024, with over 130 data requests per month over the past 3 months. This dramatic increase has been associated with streamlining and modernizing the data request system, integrating new data modalities, and promoting the value of NAC data to new audiences.
We're excited to highlight the incredible and ongoing role that NAC and the ADRC program have played and continue to play in advancing ADRD discovery and translation in this upcoming special issue, Alzheimer's Dementia. Please make sure to submit your articles by the end of the year. Now for the latest on UDSV4. And the key takeaway here, as you've heard from Cerise as well, is it is launch time. Over the past couple of years, NAC has been working closely with the CTF and NIA to develop UDSV4, which is a new gold standard for clinical phenotypic data collection that is aligned with the latest scientific advances in the field and our evolving understanding of best clinical practices. UDSV4 will capture critical data on the use of new disease-modifying drugs, social determinants of health, new concepts such as subjective cognitive decline and mild behavioral impairment, and be more inclusive. NAC and the CTF and NIA will also be encouraging sites to capture ATN data and digital voice recordings of the neuropathological exam. So the time for launching UDSV4 across the ADRC program is upon us. The UDSV4 plan that will be presented at the meeting this week was carefully crafted by the CTF, NAC, and NIA, and informed by the valuable feedback that many of you provided via the UDSV4 pilot this summer. Once again, getting back to the theme of surveys are important. We're extremely appreciative of the 23 ADRCs that participated in our UDSV4 pilot this summer and for the valuable input that you provided. So here's the deal. The CTF is currently updating documentation in response to your feedback. The final UDSV4 forms and associated documentation will be available in December. ADRCs can officially launch UDSV4 administration at their site starting in January of 2025. Sites will have until the deadline on June 2025, a 6-month window to transition to UDSV4 for all prospective UDS collection, but are strongly encouraged to make that transition as early as possible. It's up to each site whether they want to flip a switch on one day or transition more gradually during this period. NAC, the CTF, and the EDC work group are committed to supporting your site through this transition. We have put together some amazing training resources and tools. Join us at the NAC session tomorrow to learn more. You can also get a sneak peek by visiting our recently updated UDSV4 webpage. Over the past 3 years, we've also been making great headway building a one-stop shop for all ADRC program data. NAC's new flexible and modern cloud-based data platform is more multimodal and interoperable and provides free and easy access to increasing quantities of data that are standardized, high quality, harmonized, and integrated. Over the past year, we have migrated our existing data onto this new data platform, including UDS, neuropathology, and our mixed protocol MRI and PET data. We're also in the process of building out new pipelines to integrate digital data and biomarkers, digital data and biomarkers, as well as real-world data. We're also expanding and establishing interoperability with other key NIA-funded repositories. For example, we're working with NIGADS and NICRAD to integrate key metadata and analysis data that they have available for ADRC participants, so that's easier for researchers to discover, search, and access these critical data streams alongside other ADRC participant data that's available via the NAC data front door. Another key example of NAC expanding interoperability is our partnership with the Clarity Initiative. I encourage you to join the Clarity session on Thursday to learn more about how we are leveraging and building off of NAC's operational informatics infrastructure to collect critical new data that is needed to disentangle heterogeneity, validate blood biomarkers, enable better detection, and improve the generalizability of findings. The Clarity Initiative builds off our successful partnership with SCAN. Thanks to this partnership, researchers anywhere can now access analysis data on thousands of standardized MRI and PET images from ADRC participants via the NAC data front door. It takes 15 minutes to make a request through a quick access file data request system, and you can get all of the data within 24 hours. Researchers anywhere can also track how much standardized scan data is available across the ADRC program via our real-time public scan dashboards. NAC has also made great headway in making it easier for ADRCs to manage their own participants and data via the NAC ADRC portal. The ADRC portals are a key component of the new NAC data platform and are where ADRCs will be able to manage their participants and submit, view, audit, and access their participant data. You can hear all about the new functionality and components that we have added to the ADRC portals over the past few months at the NAC session tomorrow. But I want to briefly share a few highlights. Over the past 2 years, NAC has been collaborating with the Electronic Data Capture Workgroup to build a new, streamlined, modern, and flexible electronic data capture and submission system. It was recently test-driven by 23 ADRCs via our UDSV4 pilot and is accessible via your ADRC portal and ready to go for the UDSV4 launch. ADRCs can now use the portals to access more of their participant data from partner repository initiatives. This includes scan dashboards for tracking the QC status of your scan submissions and viewing and downloading all the scan variables available for your participants. And as of this week, thanks to our partnership with NIGADS, you can now also access GWAS and imputation data for your participants via the portal. Please join us once again tomorrow to learn more. As Dr. Elliott mentioned, NAC is continuing its collaboration with the Alzheimer's Association this year to offer more new investigator awards. Together, we'll be offering 10 awards at $135K in indirect costs. I want to give a huge thanks to the Alzheimer's Association and their commitment to supporting early career scientists, and to Dr. Heather Schneider and Stefania Former for their partnership in this program. We will also be continuing our highly successful mentorship program in collaboration with the REC to make mentorship available to all applicants. It's important to us that we provide value to all applicants, regardless of whether they receive the award. We're thrilled that more than 92% of mentees last year reported that they would apply the guidance that they received from mentors to future grant applications as well. We encourage you to chip in and help support the next generation of researchers by signing up today to be a mentor. It's only a 3-hour commitment and can make a huge positive impact. It was great to have so many of you join us for the New Investigator Award lunch earlier today. There will be another opportunity to learn more about this program in our upcoming webinar on October 24th. Lastly, one of the most significant areas of progress at NAC has been continuing to grow our incredible team. This is the team that has made all of the progress that I shared with you possible. I'd like for everyone who's on the NAC team to please stand up and just wave so that folks can see who you are. And yep. And I'll just note that these meetings are a great time to connect with NAC team members as well and to learn more about the great work that they're doing. So I encourage you to reach out and say hello. So thank you for your attention, and I look forward to connecting with you all this week.
So I'm also really glad to be here with you. Yeah, that's me. All right. So for those of you who worry that I'm going to talk quickly and try to cover too much, I've only got 2 agenda items. I'm going to talk about DNA, and I'm going to talk about plasma. There'll be plenty of time to ask questions if you want to cover other things, but I really wanted to take a little bit of a deeper dive in both of those areas. So let me start by talking about the GWAS data. So what I usually do is I show you all the DNA samples that we've received from the centers, and I like to talk to you about how much data has been returned. And I like going behind Sarah because now you can also see where you're going to get your GWAS data and how easy it's going to be. What I want to talk about is how I'm trying to get you GWAS data faster. And I'll tell you how we've been doing it. And a theme of today is rather than doing things with lots of samples, a smaller number of times a year, we're transitioning to doing fewer samples more frequently. So historically, we've sent samples for GWAS once or twice a year. That means we would send thousands of samples, and you'd all be waiting for that data to come back. What we started after the last meeting in May is we began to send samples monthly for GWAS. That means we've already sent 4,000 samples since May for GWAS, and we'll be sending another 4,000 that will be over getting GWAS into Q1 of 2025. So it's one thing for me to get the GWAS done and get the samples sent out. The other thing is, how are you going to get that data? So what you saw from Sarah is that NAC, NCRAD, ADGC, and NIGADS have been working together to make it easier for you to be able to get that data back. And so just want to say that's part of the partnership. That's what we're trying to do, is not only to get your data easily, but get it to you more quickly. So I'm hoping that that will be a real boon or really great for the field, both here and I would say more broadly, the Alzheimer's disease disease community. So I'm not stopping there because I need a little bit of help from you. So in order for this all to work, we need to have a NAC ID that we can link to this sample. Now you might think that that's easy, but unfortunately I have samples that aren't linked to a NAC ID, which means I can't get that data back to you. So after this meeting, Casey in the back, which who's going to get up at the end, is going to send you, because I think just about every center is going to get either a short list or a bit longer list of those individuals where we don't have a NAC ID, and I'm going to be asking for your help so that we can get things matched up a little bit more quickly. And again, it's just a process to really be able to get you data more quickly. So that's DNA. Now we're doing agenda item 2, which is about plasma. So I show you this graph every year and every meeting, so twice a year I show it to you. This year I've done something a little bit different. So what you can see, there's a blue line, and often you saw a line in another color, and it would be off on the far right where I would predict what's going to be coming. Well, I believe that this graph is so beautiful that the data core folks should be looking at this and saying, I can extrapolate. I don't need you to do it for me. And so I think what you should be able to see is the incredible contribution of the Alzheimer's centers that are participating in what we call the Alzheimer's Disease Fluid Biomarker Initiative. We've already received over just shy of 4,000 subject visits in calendar year 24, and we're just now starting the fourth quarter. So what you're receiving back is standard biomarkers that are coming from the NICRED biomarker assay laboratory. So here on the top, you're getting both assays from the Quanterix platform and also from the LumiPulse platform. So I've been talking about this, keep talking about returning data to you, and part of the theme this year is what do you want to be able to do with that data, and how can we be your partner in using that data most effectively? So what we've been thinking about is cut points. It's one thing to get a quantitative value. We've been hearing increasingly, tell me about the cut point. Tell me what the cut point's going to be for p-tau 217 and for 181. So I'm going to show you that we are now able to do that for you, and we want to talk to you a little bit more about how you want to use that. What I also did last month, and really a shout out to Lynn Beckris, who snuck us in so that I could say at this meeting, I've spoken to the ADRC Fluid Biomarker Working Group, was to ask what their sense was, how did they think their center wanted to be able to use biomarker data. We heard visualization, yes, that's important, but even if you don't have a cut point, potentially, how can I look where my participant lies in comparison to other individuals? Even knowing where they lie, even if I don't have a cut point, could be helpful to us. And lastly, we know that you want to be able to use the p-tau cut points as part of your UDS4. So let me show you where we're going, and then I'm going to be telling you that I don't want you all to come grab me at the end of this. I'm going to be sending you a survey. So that's one of the key points here. So this is what an example of what we envision. This happens to be for 181. It'll be similar for 217. Is what you'll be able to do is you can see there's 3 graphs here. I don't know if I've got a pointer, but you can see 3 colors that represents out of the ADRCs individuals who were healthy controls, MCI, or demented individuals, each of those 3 colors. You can see where your subject falls, so it'll be a subject where you entered their data, that's that thick black line. And you can see a blue dash line, that's the cut point. So what you'd be able to do is visualize where does my individual fall across this spectrum. And again, we envision that that cut point is going to be value for you, particularly for p-tau. What I want to flag for you is something that's a little bit more difficult. So thinking about how would you do this for NFL and for GFAP. What you can see in that middle bar is that we've got age effects. So if we really want to be able to talk about cut points, we have to be able to take into account age effects. But we can envision that while you might not have a cut point, you might find it valuable to see where your participant lies without an age correction, sort of against other individuals. And again, thinking about other etiologies. So I've alluded to a survey. What we'd like to do is better understand from all of the Alzheimer's centers how you want to use the biomarker data that you're receiving back from us. So the first thing is, when do you want to use it? Do you want to use it as part of your consensus conference? Next question I have to ask you is, what's the timing of that consensus conference as compared to the participant visit? So what's that turnaround time that you need? And then I hate to ask you, will you have your NAC data entered? Because you've already heard, if I don't have a NAC ID, it's harder for me to be able to return this data and make it available to you. So we've got a little bit of a timeline that we need to work our way through. But before I make this more complicated, I want to hear from you how you want to be able to use that data, and again, understanding that timeline. Next thing is, then how does that faster turnaround work? So what I've shown you is I'm challenging us that we need to be able to return data more frequently and faster. So we're turning ourselves into a 6-week turnaround. Every 6 weeks, we want to be able to turn data back out. That doesn't mean 6 weeks from the time I receive it. I need to understand better what that turnaround time needs to be. So that leads to me to a question that I'm sure you want to ask me, which is, some of you have been waiting for your biomarker data, and you're going, when am I going to get that? So I want to show you where we are and how we're going to get through our backlog, and then where we're going to be. So what you're looking at here in the blue is what we've already returned. So you see 930 subjects, and you see an October return. I really do wish that I was sitting with that 930 in blue. It's in green because we've got a little bit more work to do, and one of the things we pride ourselves in, one of the things you expect from us, is that we return data that does not have batch effects, doesn't have lot effects, is harmonized, and is of the highest quality that you can use it for your UDS4. So I'm not going to return anything unless I'm sure it's ready. You're going to get it this month, but you're going to get it probably next week or the week after, depending on when we get it to NAC and when NAC gets it out to you. But then what you see is now we're transitioning out of that 6-week regular turn back to NAC. We're going to have a return in December, we're going to have a return in January, and we're going to have a return in February. What that means, when we're done with February, we're done with all of our backlog. And just to give you a feel of what we're then working through, we're getting about 100 to 150 kits, that's subject visit samples, each week now at NCRAD. So our goal is to be able to turn that around regularly, but I need to also balance the quality that I need to give this back to you with how you need to use that data. And again, the survey is going to help us understand that. So with that, I've got 2 individuals in the back, and now I'm going to make them just stand up so you can find them. They're right back there. Kristen on the left, who runs the Biomarker Assay Lab. Casey, well, I guess on the left and right, Casey, project manager with us at NCRAD. So if you have questions specifically about your center, there they both are. If you got general questions, we're all going to line up and do that after Lisan's presentation. Thanks so much.
I'm going to talk about genetics. We have more data coming, and again, we have a lot of data, more than 120 data sets, and covering more than 200,000 samples in different kinds of data, SNP array, sequencing, and a lot of these data come from the Alzheimer's disease sequencing project, the flagship initiative for cohort expansion and whole genome sequencing, and many of you that I saw here are major leaders and contribute to that effort, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about this program today, about the new data that's coming in. We've released some additional files for previous freezes, and that was just released in October, but we have 2 major additional releases going to happen in the next 2 months. One is additional new whole genomes sequences data and additional clinical data. So let me tell you more about these. The first is the files that we released. These are additional information that will add value to the existing whole genome and whole exome releases. That includes chromosome X, chromosome Y, mitochondria, and multi-allelic variant codes, which are more difficult to process. So we're glad to make additional quality controls on these data that will be useful for data users. We also generated structural variant codes. These are genetic variants that are not single nucleotide substitutions. They affect multiple nucleotides at once, insertions, deletions, and copy number variations. And for the release for 36,000 whole genomes, now we have the joint code genotypes. That gives you the complete data matrix, so you know the genotype for every structural variant that's called in every one of the 36,000 genomes. So these are useful information that will be valuable for researchers who are using these data. We're really excited about this new release that will bring additional new whole genomes to the ADSP release that will almost double the number of samples. And one thing I do want to highlight is ADRC is the biggest contributor, and from the centers, about 20% of the genomes and 20% of exomes are from centers, and I want to thank all of you for contributing to this resource. Well, thank you. Yes. As always, we really appreciate this. The other thing I want to highlight is the number here is a little bit outdated. There's some cohorts that probably, because we didn't get their information, they might not be able to make it. So it's about 60,000. I do want to say this is a very diverse data set. About half of the samples are not European ancestries, and this makes this is one of the biggest whole genome resources for a single disease, but it's also, I think, the most diverse large-scale genomic data set that I know. So we're really proud of these achievements. We will release raw data and previews. There's still ongoing quality control. These data are extremely complicated, and they're pretty big. Now the whole raw data is going to be about 2 petabytes in size. But it's a valuable resource. You're going to have the read alignments. You're going to have joint call that is cumulative, that covers all the 60,000 genomes that has been released so far. So have the complete data matrix. And there's some additional information. Again, we'd like to send the whole genome and whole exome data back to you if that's something you'd like to do. These are really big, but we'd like to help you access that. Send us an email if that's something you're interested. In the December release, that's another update I think is going to add enormous value to the resource. It's additional clinical data harmonized by the Phenotype Harmonization Consortium. It's led by Tim Holman from Vanderbilt, Mike Kukuro from Miami, and Arthur Toga from USC. And as you can see, these are really challenging efforts. You have different data collection protocols from different cohorts, but the entire PSC has dozens of domain experts in these various types of data. They have developed statistical methods to transform the data so you can analyze these data together with minimal batch effects. And they're continuing working on other data. We're adding these data by cohorts, and this will be available in December 2024, and you can link them with ADSP data. We continue to work on the snippet array data. These are much cheaper, so you can genotype on other additional samples. We work with NACRAT to genotype ADRC data, and also they help us with sample management on other cohorts as well. So again, all the ADRC data that's genotype ADGC, they are available on NIGATs, and there are additional GWAS data that are in progress that overlap with the phenotype harmonization. PSC also does samples from these cohorts, even though not all of them are sequenced in the whole genome data. They do it for the entire cohort whenever it's available. And the data has been, there's a lot of effort to clean up the data. They're lifted to the same genome build. They are processed, so the covariate files are consistent, and they have ADSP IDs, so you can cross-compare and link with the ADSP data. So the goal is we want to put it in the same platform so you can have one data access request can access all the whole genome and snippet array data. I'd like to also talk about all of the science and try to do this more because I think it's really exciting that we know what are the progress when these data are being used. The first thing is from the ADSP structural variant work group. What they're working on is how to detect structural variants from whole genome sequencing. We're thinking about insertions, deletions, and large-scale copy number variation that are really hard to detect from snippet arrays. And they develop a pipeline here that is a work by the work group. They spend a lot of time validating and benchmarking on this. So they have a high-quality data set. These are all released in the previous ADRC release, and they finished their analysis on the release 3, about 17,000 whole genomes, and they found protein-altering structural variants on non-AD genetic variants, their duplication on the APP, and they found some of the structural variants to be in strong LD linkage with non-AD GWAS variants. That suggests these structural variants might be functionally causal to contribute to the risk that we found. And they also found excess of structural variants on neuronal genes. So these are all great findings because structural variants is something that's really hard to analyze. So I think this is pretty innovative. It's still under review, but they have the preprint here. They also analyzed feature analysis of the release 3 data, which is available for researchers, and it's just accepted by Alzheimer's and dementia, but again, you can find the preprint here, and they replicate some of the previous findings, showing the robustness of the sequencing approach, but whole genome analysis also allows you to see rare coding variants and mutations. So the analysis of release 4 is ongoing, and I think we're going to have even more exciting discoveries on this. The other challenge that researchers are finding is actually how to make sense of the non-coding variants that are not inside any genes. So we don't know which genes are affected. Sometimes it could affect the expression of genes that are like a million bases away. So what you want to do is you want to integrate that with functional omics data. In particular, one example is the expression QTLs that tells you which SNP regulates the gene expression of nearby genes. So in that way, you can find out what is the cellular tissue context, as well as what genes are really like contributing to the risk associated with the SNP. It's not an easy job. There's a function within the ADSP Functional Genetics Consortium. There's a XQTL work group, and we'd be really glad to have a chance to work with them to support the data management and coordination. They developed this really, I think, a high quality, robust pipeline to aggregate various data and conduct analysis. It's a huge amount of work. They are at the stage of writing out the paper and releasing the data. I got a slide from them showing that what they're doing is taking these QTL data to investigate the various GWAS hits to find out what are the causal variants. And at this moment, they were able to do this examination about more than 90 genome-wide significant loci. So when we have these results released, we'll make it available to our NIGAS and other repositories. I think this will be very valuable for researchers looking at Alzheimer's genetics. We have the open access platform. Open access portal allows you to download some of the files that do not have, they're not sensitive. You can download directly without data request process. We have other platforms that list functional omics annotations, top GWAS findings, and genomics database that's a fully featured, just like UCS's genome browser, but focusing on Alzheimer's genetics finding. And finally, we are looking forward to, we look forward to work with all our ADRC partners and researchers who use our data. We have office hours, video tutorials, support. We have a support portal. Send us a question if you want. We'd like to, we'll reach out to you. And we are going to have a booth. We had a booth at AIC, and it's great to see everybody there. And we have really nice goodies. So when we do it, ASAG next month. We hope to see you there. One other thing I'd like to add, we have preprint that describes NIGAS as a resource. It's a review of our work, the team's work for the past 12 years. We're really proud of the paper, and it's in the preprint, so have a look. And the other thing is we're rolling out a new website. That's a screenshot on the right, and it's going to be out this or next month, and helps you better access our resources. And we'd like to get your input on what kind of things, what are features you want to look at. So this is our last slide. Again, we have a booth at American Society of Human Genetics in Denver next month. And I don't know if Heather White, who's here, Heather is a project coordinator. Oh, there she is. And she's, she really helped us build these outreach programs, and you probably saw her at one of the office hours, online offices we have. So we'd like to see you, and Heather and I are here this afternoon as well as tomorrow. So if you have any question about data, you can find us at the meetings, and we look forward to talk to you at the meeting as well as next month. Thank you so much.
Okay, we still have a few minutes for questions, so I'd like to welcome back up to the stage Dr. Biber and Dr. Farood. We do not have any online questions at this time, so I'll hand that off to Lisa Barnes to ask the first question.
Hi, Lisa Barnes from Rush. Great informative presentations. My question's for Tatiana. What population was used for the the p-tau or the cutoffs, and I think I know the answer. So depending on your answer, what are the plans to give us more information about what we can use for other populations, since we know there's a lot of heterogeneity in how these markers operate?
So that was a perfect question. You do know the answer because what I've shown you right there is from Alzheimer's Center participants. So that's the data that went into those. So I'd say two things. For us to be able to do cut points in more diverse participants, you all know what I need. I need those of you who are recruiting diverse participants in your center to please work with us and participate with us. And so that's how we're going to at least be able, that's how we're going to be able to get what I would argue would be comprehensive cut points that are specific and available to the populations that you'll want to be able to compare to. So I totally agree. So I'm using ADRC data. That's the data that we're using for those cut points. So I'm limited by what I have, but I fully agree with you that that's not, what we have is not what we need.
I know, but you have other resources, other groups that send you data, right?
So if you were to ask me, where else am I getting fluid-based biomarkers from more diverse participants, it's quite limited the groups that we're running them for right now. So we are doing ACAD, which would give us Asian. Yep. We are running the Indianapolis Abaddon, which we've just recently run, so that could be provided. The data in terms of the number of individuals who would meet AD criteria is modest there, but that would be probably our best comparable population in terms of numbers.
All right, thanks.
No problem.
I don't know, okay. Well, I want to pick up on that theme in the sense of phenotyping. And so we're kind of stuck here with controls and affected, and many of the sites have people in transition in the MCI. So, and you know, some of them will progress and others won't. And it would be really nice if we could have more of those genotyped. And I know there's been an attempt to get that, but you weren't talking about that today. And I think it'd be great to hear if we are getting more of that genotype.
So let me, you've given me an easy one, Charlie. You never give me an easy one.
No,
so I just want everyone.
An easy one
so
this
actually,
time.
several years ago, and I think we did it as part of our renewal. So if Casey's there, she's going to keep me honest. So that means starting in 2020, we send everyone for GWAS that has a sample with us at NCRAD. We were tying it to have a NAC ID. And that's why I had to put that plea in just now, because we've begun sending samples that we don't have linked to a NAC ID because we were concerned about leaving anyone out because we're cleaning house. So that's my problem. So the way we do it, if you want to know the back end, is you're right. The ADGC is focused on AD, MCI.
Yeah, I know.
I pay for the other part, but everybody is getting GWAS if I have a DNA sample at NCRAD.
I was really talking to the ADGC more than... And can we get sequencing on all of those as well? Because I think we need to expand this. I think that there are risk alleles or risk SNPs that, you know, could be of interest. Maybe they don't go to AD, maybe they go to something else.
Oh, okay. So, well, when ADG started, we tried to make sure that the data is homogeneous, but Charlie, you're absolutely right. We need to start looking at these other conditions. So Tatiana genotyped all these data, yes. And these are processed and imputed, and we return to the centers. And I think that one of the challenges is how do you incorporate into GWAS analysis, because these samples are limited, but we have people who are looking at this, and certainly, like, in the digital diagnosis, we want to look at other endophenotypes.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. And I think that this gets to the NAC question, too, and that is combining those endophenotypes. Particularly, I think, structural imaging, PET, those kind of things are really going to be very, very helpful as preclinical endophenotypes.
Hi there, Linda Van Eldik. So this question is for Tatiana. So as you know, fluid biomarkers, especially plasma biomarkers, are changing rapidly, very rapidly. The platforms are changing. The analytes are changing. So what is NCRAD doing to prepare for future changes and being able to look at existing data in comparison with future data, which may be on completely different platforms?
So I love your question too. I wish I could say you were planted. So let me walk you through. So I was just talking, I have a figure that I could have brought. So you're absolutely right. What we're doing right now is in the context of standard single biomarker assays for p-tau, for A-beta 40/42, and of course doing the complex for NFL and GFAP. In early November, we'll have an ELISA, and so what we anticipate is that as the FDA approves single marker biomarkers, the field is going to need NCRAD to evolve now, and you're going to want to have ELISA and other relevant platforms from us. When I come back here, you're going to say, I don't want what you used to give me. I want you to give me now the next thing. So we're getting ready for that. What we anticipate is we go in for renewal. We were one of the concepts that were up there. What do we envision as the next things over the next 5 years, if I have a decent looking glass? At least in the first couple years, I think we anticipate that we're going to looking at some of the newer blood collection devices. How can we successfully be able to do those types of collections off of, for example, on ELISA or similar platform? And then I certainly hope we're going to be in a position that we're looking at other pathologies. So I really hope what I'm going to be giving you over the next 5 years is now going to expand, that we'll have good research assays that we'll be able to offer. So we see that our needs are going to evolve, and that our job, we certainly hope, is to meet that.
Yes, so we have time for 2 more questions. So I'd like to hand first to Richard and then to the other side.
Just a quick, very specific question, Tatiana. What do you think of current reports on the substantial time of day impact on multiple biomarkers? And if you take them seriously, what are you doing in terms of harmonizing that sort of information?
So it's a great question. So we collect information on fasting. So as many of you know, we would love to get samples only on fasting, and that would typically then be earlier in the day. It's really challenging, as all of you, I don't have to tell you this, in populations to have individuals come fasting. So in terms of when the sample's been collected, we have information on like time to spin. We don't record the exact time of that blood collection. So one of the challenges for that would be is what do the centers feel that in terms of burden that we can collect? If we feel that that's something that we want to be able to explore, it's a relevant pre-analytical variable, we would need to have agreement that that's something that we would be able to collect. Does that make sense? It's sort of the balance of fasting to us was the critical thing. We wanted to have that information while not requiring it. And then as we see additional areas, I think we have to work with the Alzheimer's centers and ask, can we make that challenge to the centers?
Hank Paulson, this is for Lisan. 60,000 genomes, that's fantastic. And the diversity of those genomes is even doubly fantastic. Tremendous amount to be learned, not enough investigators to do it, and many investigators who are super talented who still don't quite know how to get into the genetics. It's great that you have these tutorials and these open hours. Do you have a sense of how that's going? Are people actually showing up? We saw from Sarah that there's a tremendous increase in access or in queries for data from the NAC. How about people who are not part of the ADSP coming and getting the genetic data?
Well, I don't have the exact numbers, but yeah, we also see a trajectory of going up with the people who access data. I think one of the challenges, genetic data, there are policies involved with it to make sure like data protection and people are doing, and there's processes like annual renewal to make sure that if there are new policies, they will understand that they have to follow it, which like there are different kinds, we're addressing that, but office hours, depends. We do see like, I don't know, 20 or 30 people call in and at each of these office hours. And we had a workshop earlier this year at AIC, and I was planning about doing something again next year. And we have like hundreds of people showing at the booth. So,
excellent.
Yep.
I have a really quick question. I want to do an ApoE genotyping, and I can't find a place to do it. Does NCRAD do it, or how do we get the simple things done? Not the new ones that you're discovering, but something simple.
Oh man, you're so good to me this time. So you're not asking for an Alzheimer's center sample, correct? Yes. Yeah, you're getting that. You get that. That's been returned. that's returned to NAC. You should have ApoE for every one of your ADRC participants.
We just got funded a couple months ago. We're a brand new ADRC center, and I can't find any information about how to get an AD panel, an ApoE genotype, and I think we should be doing Notch 3 because a lot of my patients have that.
Come talk to us.
I was going to say, come see Casey. Come see us at the break. We will take care of you.
All right. I think that concludes our Q&A. Thank you so much, Drs. Biber, Farud, and Wong.